Hello, good people. We are back for another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. Joining me today is my good friend, colleague, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many paths to this relationship. But Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter. How are you doing today?
Hello. Hey, everybody. Hey, peeps from the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm excited to be here, Nnamdi. Thank you for having me again.
No, you know what you're like at this point. All right, if for all my hip hop fanatics who from the '90s era, right? There was this album called Cuban Links by Raekwon. Though it was Raekwon's album, Ghostface was a significant presence on that album. It's a classic album. You're like my Ghostface to the Cuban Links. You've been the
I
most
appreciate
recurring
that.
guest. You've been the most recurring guest through our 32. Oh, by the way, this is our 30. I think this is episode 32. So we've been at it for 32 weeks, people. This is like really, really consistent. I'm totally excited for it. So you're
That's
my
dope.
you're
That's
my ghost.
almost half of that's more than half of the year.
And
30.
it's so funny because I was watching something a while ago, and I think it was Seth Godin. He said, if you on your podcast, whatever you do, if you could get past 30, because
Mhm.
a lot of people like will stop at 10, maybe 20, but like when you get past that 30 mark, I mean, I know your numbers are crazy. You're like at what, like 500 right now? What's
I don't think
breaking that
500.
cyber? Like it's a ridiculous number. Like
Hundreds.
you're like 1,000 right now. You have
No way. It's like
your
maybe three.
numbers. I think when I knew it was real, that month you did like every single day of the month.
Oh, yeah, that was October.
That
We're
was
going to do that again. That was
that's
fun.
you know what? I you know what? I'm not gonna even put myself out there. I don't know if I'll be doing that, but I totally respect the movement. Anyway, although she's been on the show numerous of times, I still need to read her bio for those that do not know Renee Small. So let's go for it. Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter. Renee Small helps people take the mystery out of breaking into cybersecurity. She's passionate about building best-in-class cybersecurity teams. In 2017, Renee received the Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She is a #1 Amazon best-selling author of Magnetic Hiring, a contributing editor to several cybersecurity magazines, and she co-hosts a podcast called Breaking Into Cybersecurity. Renee is joining us today to talk about the Great Resignation. Post-pandemic UK tech talent exodus, is the US next, is the title of the show. So how the show came about, well, how this topic of the day came about, what we came across some research and some news articles that suggested what they're calling the Great Resignation. A lot of people, now that we're coming out of the pandemic, are switching roles. We are obviously the Tech Behind FinTech, so we are concerned about the IT aspect and how that impacts the financial services market. And in general, we're going to talk about the overall job market. So we have the right person on to lead that task. Happy Friday to everybody. If you're out there, drop a comment so we know that you're listening to us. Always appreciate the comments and the feedback, especially when we jump into the news section. So with that said, like always on all our shows, we get into some news of the week that we found interesting, and then we jump into the topic of the day. First news article: Mastercard launches new initiative to support minority-owned fintech startups. Start Path participants will receive direct access to the company's channels, customers, and product teams, as well as tools to uncover co-innovation and growth opportunities. The program is part of Mastercard's $500 million solidarity commitment. All startups will also be paired with a dedicated Start Path sponsor who will work to ensure they receive relevant support, as well as a Mastercard mentor whose expertise matches their business area. New program is part of Mastercard's solidarity commitment of $500 million in product and technology and financial support to help close the racial wealth and opportunity gap. Kudos to Mastercard for that.
Mastercard.
Seems pretty cool. Dig it.
I agree. I think it's fantastic.
We have a comment. Steve Upshore, MBA. Steve checking in from San Diego. Thanks for checking in, Steve. We really appreciate you. Is that one of your
I feel like I've met maybe. His name sounds very familiar. So Steve, if you're a security peep, thanks for being here. And if not, you got to join the security peeps.
Well, hey, there you go. So if you're a fintech peep, thanks for being here. If you're a security peeps, thanks for being. We appreciate you either way. However you come, just as long as you are here and present. So yeah, no, that was an interesting article. I actually have some I have some friends, some fintech CEOs that have gone through that in terms of funding and trying to seek funding. So I actually forwarded it to a good friend of mine who has a venture right now.
Nice. No, I think it's like they're putting their money where their mouth is, which is great, because last year there was a lot of discussion and talk around companies trying to get more diverse candidates, more diversity when it comes to vendors, just as a whole, and partnering with entrepreneurs. So it's good that they're moving forward with this. That's fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, Steven says, I watch you. He's part of the cybersecurity peeps.
He is a security peep. I knew your name sounded familiar or looked familiar. Good. That's good stuff. I think Naomi's going to be back with us next week. So cool.
Nice. Yeah, I think it was you. Yesterday I tuned into your show. It was you and James.
James is so much fun.
Yeah, you guys are jokes. Next news article of the day. So we're gonna go to crypto. El Salvador lawmakers vote to approve Bitcoin as legal tender. So on Wednesday, after lawmakers in the Central American nation voted to approve cryptocurrency as legal tender, what does that mean? The president, Nnamdi Bukele, tweeted in early hours of Wednesdays that legislators had voted in favor of the bill to formally adopt Bitcoin with 62 out of 84 possible votes. So what does that mean? The law also states that prices can be expressed in Bitcoin, taxes can be paid in the cryptocurrency, and every economic agent must accept Bitcoin as payment when offered to him by whoever acquires a good or service. As well, the exchange rate between Bitcoin and US dollars will be freely established by the market. An exception is later made for those who do not have access to the technologies that allow them to carry out transactions in Bitcoin. Let's note El Salvador is the first nation in the world to do this. This is huge.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
Yes, that's definitely, and I think the IMF has some issues with that. They want to stay on top of it. So that's very interesting. I mean, I know, obviously, if you're following the cryptocurrency prices, it was up at like the high was like close to 65,000. Total crash after a certain multi-billionaire let out some tweets, among other things. So, but then with this news, it jumped up again. I don't think it's at 40 right now. I think it's still at like 37, 38.
I thought it was really okay.
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna pop back up again.
You know what? Now you have me curious because now I want to kind of see what the price is.
Yeah, I thought it was up a little. But overall, it's just going to show that this is mainstream and
36,942.71.
Okay.
So that is the current price of the cryptocurrency known as Bitcoin.
Right.
So wait, before we jump into that, what's interesting is, okay, well, wait, hold up. Before we jump into that, I think Stephen has a question. How will this affect the US dollar, which is the currency of choice by many nations? That is the big question.
know the answer. Jump on.
So, I mean, I can't call it. I'm not gonna. That's out of the scope of my expertise per se. So I'm not going to add to that. But if everyone's using US and then in the future people start, you have a common crypto that people are using. I mean, looks like it may be a game changer. Can't call it, but a lot of countries right now, the move is to adopt their own coin. They're like a central coin. And I'm gonna get into that. Let's see. Let's spend so much time on the news, but before we jump in, JP Morgan says there's weak Bitcoin demand from big investors and a crypto bear market could be on the way. We believe so they have their own it's funny. I know
JP Morgan.
Yeah, because it's so funny. What years ago, back in 2017, following all this that was the whole thing. Like everyone, a certain CEO was totally against it, but yeah.
I mean, the links were on LinkedIn. It was like Jamie Dimon says, Bitcoin is it not that it was fake, but I don't know the exact quote.
I forget, but the general gist was like it's a joke. Don't even
it's a joke. I don't know why people are pouncing all over it. Meanwhile, all these banks are, I'm talking to leaders inside of different organizations that had whole blockchain incubators going on within these banks. These banking.
It's definitely important to distinguish the actual crypto from the blockchain technology use cases around that. So I can definitely understand the leaders you're talking to, because they have. I know multiple banks that have the incubators and back when it was more R&D. Now we're actually
in the
seeing
lab
startups with actual use cases that are like public facing that are doing interesting things. Renee and I have been talking about this since 2017, 18. So I know before it was although Bitcoin came the actual came out in 2008, it was still new. And now we're seeing a lot more use cases. But that is a topic for an entirely different show. So I don't want to bombard with Bitcoin and crypto news, because we had a show on that. You could go back to our previous and look at that, and we will have future shows on that. But today, Renee, let's talk about it. Post-pay. What's up? Everybody's like leaving their jobs or thinking about getting a new job. What's up with that? What's going on?
Yeah. I mean, it's not surprising to me at all. So specifically in technology, as you all probably already know, I've been doing technology recruiting for almost 20 years now. And over the past 10 years or so, especially with the focus in security, folks have asked for remote opportunities and have been, turning down roles, turning down things, especially when it came to remote in particular, and flexibility. So maybe not 100% remote, not as much, but just flexibility, like life flexibility, work-life type of flexibility in their roles. And I had seen this kind of coming. The pandemic just made the hard stop because everything shut down and everybody had to become remote. But prior to getting to this point, while I talk to candidates every single day still, and some of the main reasons why people leave companies are growth opportunities, meaning they want to grow inside, grow their technology skills, grow their leadership skills, just like growth skills. And, one of the top areas of that, one of the top components, so not work-life balance, but work skills and growth, that's important. And then flexibility is very important too. And I think a study was done, I don't have the specific statistics, but something was done where it was on LinkedIn very recently, where they said, would you take the pay cut or more money to go back into the office, or take a pay cut and stay remote? And the vast majority of people would take the pay cut and stay remote. Wow. And so it just goes to show, how the pandemic has kind of ushered in this 100% remote workforce, or much, much more flexibility. And specifically in technology, And obviously all other types of roles where you don't have to press or do a thing. Like you can work from anywhere. Like your laptop and your phone pretty much get you access to your work. You don't have to physically be sitting in an office to be doing your job. And so I'm thinking, it's funny when this article popped up that I saw, and I was going to post it, and I was thinking about it when you and I started talking about what a good topic would be. I was like, yeah, this whole the great resignation makes perfect sense, because people have been, I think, this is anecdotal from folks that I've been talking to. You're kind of in a company, you've been there. If you were in the same company during the pandemic, you may not have wanted to leave because you didn't know. It was pretty uncertain, right, what was happening. But now that we're coming out of it and we're kind of almost post pandemic at this point, and kind of cities are opening up, countries are opening back up, then people start looking around and saying, okay, this job that I kind of held on to while I was in this, situation, now I'm ready to look. I've been ready to look. It's kind of like delayed. So they've been ready for 6 months, maybe longer, maybe right before the pandemic, but decided, hey, I'm just going to hunker down and stay while this thing is happening. And now you're at the other side of it. And if a company, for example, if you've been remote and company is now like, hey, you got to come back into the office, for those folks that remote working works out better for them, they likely are going to be actively looking for, more remote opportunities. And then obviously the folks who want to go back into the office, they'll do that too. So it's going to be very, very interesting. And it's a phenomenon. I mean, nothing like this has happened in my career. When have we ever been locked down ever for 100 years?
This is like a total.
It's never happened ever. It's just like grand spanking new. So I'm very, very curious. It's very, my the HR hat in me, and that is very, very curious about this phenomenon and what actually happens now.
What I found interesting, right, when that research was done in the UK, they came back with 58% of the IT workforce there is thinking about leaving in 6 to 12 months, or when the economy stabilizes. Not only that, it will cost businesses $23 billion if that comes to fruition. So that, I don't know, that number just stuck in my head. Like, wow, this is really serious.
It's huge. And I think that what'll be interesting though is those people will land in other places. Like, I don't think the industry as a whole, people who are in roles, and let's say they want to leave one company and go into another because, big company A says, okay, are either hybrid or you have to come back in and commute. And big company C says, I'm 100% remote. Like, there are some companies that are saying I'm 100% remote now indefinitely. And so those, people from big company A will try to get into big company B. So I don't think they're just going to completely go off the grid. They will find work elsewhere. But it'll be interesting because I don't think it's interesting. 58% of people will leave, but then they will also land, right? They're not going to leave their job most of the time without something else. They're going to land somewhere.
This 23 billion number stuck in my head. I mean, obviously there's a cost of onboarding. There's a cost of offboarding. There's a cost associated with, the lack of productivity when someone starts to leave, and then you have to now ramp a new person up. So, I mean, that all is stuck in my head. What do you think employers can do to retain, like be pro, like, all right, I'm in big company A, or even small and mid-sized company A. I'm hearing us talk. I'm reading the stats, right? No one's given me the resignation letter yet, but if a great number of if the IT workforce in general is thinking about it, I can make the assumption that some people in my firm are thinking about it. How can they be proactive at this point to start to retain those individuals?
Yeah, I think they should I think leaders as a whole, especially at the executive level, should really be considering, who are their competition, immediate competition. And if the competition is moving in that direction, prepare for what it is going to be when your current workforce potentially makes that move. Like, it should be one big risk analysis document right now going around at that executive level, because that these people are going to be moving. So I'll give you it's not exactly the same, but when I'm in the Northern Virginia area and outside of Washington, D.C., and Amazon, when the news happened that Amazon's headquarters 2 was coming into the DC area, many companies, I'm on these like working workforce groups, and this one organization called the Northern Virginia Technology Council, which is one of the biggest technology councils in the country, had all these working groups and discussions around workforce as a whole, because there was all these challenges around, getting people in the area to stay in the area from an entry level standpoint. So they were saying, for example, many of the students will leave the DC area, like they'll come to school here and then leave the DC area and go elsewhere, go to the West Coast, Silicon Valley, things like that. That's more exciting for them from a tech talent perspective. So some of the companies were very, very concerned with like, okay, Amazon's going to come and literally suck up all our talent. And I know that's not true, but it makes sense that was a concern, and kind of like, okay, so what are we going to do to compete now? Like, we have this big competitor, this huge competitor. What are we going to do? It should be the same type of discussions being had. Like, what are we going to do here? Do we plan to go through the process of a truly either 100% remote or hybrid work environment? Are we going to let that talent go and prepare for that gap and like hire in maybe younger talent or early career, I don't say younger, but early career talent that can come in and you're going to have that gap and that loss of productivity and that loss of, potentially billions of dollars during a period where you're growing up this talent. Or are you, what are you going to do? But they have to be doing something. Being proactive is key, because people will move. And at a very, very basic level, like there's different levels to this. So the executive level, obviously, but if you're a line manager, like somebody that's kind of relatively on a regular level, it's just keeping a pulse on your employees, like understanding what makes them tick. One of the things that we as recruiters do, one of my very first questions is asking someone, well, what is most important to them in their career? Like, that's the number one question. It's not technology. It's not, it's my first question. What is most important to you? So if this is most important, if I'm talking to, a person with, a technologist or somebody that has 6 kids, they tell me, what's most important is the health benefits, then that's what's most important. It may not necessarily be salary. It may not be all these other things. It's like, hey, I need health benefits for my family. For a lot of, obviously, technology folks, the more often than not, and I think this has been stated somewhere or documented, is that skills, growth opportunities, going to conferences, staying up to date on their, on the technology, especially when it comes to security. Obviously I'm skewed a little bit to security, but technology as a whole, being a part of the various communities is very, very important. So you may not have to go change up your whole, like the whole dynamic of your organization. You may just have to get to people where they are. Like, if that's what's important, then spend a couple $1,000s and send this person to the conference. Like, like figure out what is most important to each individual on your team and try to meet those things.
I want to unpack. You said a lot of you said a lot.
I could go on and on and on.
Don't ever apologize for sharing your expertise on this show. We appreciate it. We learn from it, and it's awesome. But with that said, I just want to unpack some chunks here and there. Number one, in my over 2 decade career, I've never had anyone ask me that question. What's important to me? What at all? I've never had anyone. I've never had a recruiter. I've been talked to tons of recruiters in various opportunities over the years. I've never had that question at all. So I think and that's what makes you the super recruiter. Okay, just wanted to give you your flowers.
I gave out one of my
I gave you. I just wanted to give you your flowers on that. All right, next. Interesting concept. When you mention employers looking at their competition in terms of what direction are they going, because and an analogy I want to make to that is on the security side. So let's say, obviously, if you're looking at an organization and you're trying to secure them, you cannot 100% security it's the same thing as 100% QA. It's not, it's going to be extremely expensive and not worth the cost, right? Mm-hmm. So what you seek to do is kind of look at the industry, and then you get into a threat modeling exercise. What are the risks to to this particular industry? What breaches have occurred in your competitors, in your vertical, and so forth. And then you start prioritizing, okay, the roadmap in terms of what you're going to secure. I'm looking at what you just said as the same type of technique, but from your employee side, because obviously employee retention, look, what's the number one thing people you always hear, that companies always say? What the most important thing are our people. So you're it's corporate.
That's what's on the little card that they use. That's the company line. I don't know if it's true.
Our people help grow this, all that stuff, right? So if that is true, and obviously, as we just talked about the number, that with this with the Great Resignation and the research that was, and obviously this hasn't come to fruition yet, but that $23 billion number, that's a very expensive. So you look at breaches, right? Breaches have hit from the millions, whether you talk about fines. So it still boils down to a monetary cost, something of value that is leaving your firm, right? So I think maybe we can unpack it offline. And I'm kind of like, I'm both in consultant mode and I'm in academic mode. So I'm always about like this research, like, wow, it's just like an interesting research topic, but there's something there for sure. Like I like that correlation, especially because obviously we both work in security in various aspects. And I just saw when you said it, it instantly hit me right now. This is not even like we scripted this. This is all live. But when you said it, I was like, wow, that's interesting. Like really doing that type of risk analysis and maybe making a threat modeling and correlating it from employees. All right, I can go on and on a tangent because I'm an idea.
Totally be a SWOT analysis for this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
because you are going to, if your competition is like, hey, I'm 100% remote and everything else aligns, like, why wouldn't people go over to this other place? If that's what's important to, again, what is most important, if that is what is most important. And from like the LinkedIn articles and the other studies that are being done, it's clearly important because people are saying, I would rather stay home and work and be remote than travel and take more money or, be on the road or commuting. And there's a comment here. I don't know if you saw Steven.
Yeah. We're about to show it right now.
He's saying the same, pretty much what we're saying.
I just started a remote IT internship and I absolutely enjoy remote work. It is an awesome relief from my daily 150-mile round trip commute. I feel more productive now, as you should, that I don't feel mentally drained from not having to navigate through heavy traffic. There you go.
That's what people are saying. And, you throw in families into that.
That's real. I trust me. I've done 200 miles at times, back and forth. So I 100% get that. Feel your pain, Steve.
No, Steven, that's what I would hear all throughout, pre-pandemic when this hit. It was like, oh, we need people in the office. And one of the points from that article said that managers of some of, you know, the mindset of some of these people were that it's impossible to collaborate unless you're in the same room. So clearly this has been debunked with 2020 and 2021. So, you know, here we are, you can still collaborate. Yes, it obviously you want to bring people together at points in time, but if this is going to, if the company is a company that is looking for top talent, and this is what top talent is looking for, and you're not providing it, they're going to go.
And let's break that down. I mean, especially when, you know, our show was more around financial services and fintech. So I remember the days, you know, of working in the financial services industry with certain major investment banks, right? And the only time you would be even allowed to be remote is if you're sick. And even that was like a thing, right? So you're just going to call out. You had to be, they just didn't trust it. And okay, after a while, okay, the whole VPN thing started to take place, but still it was more so, all right, something major happens in your life, you have to be remote, we understand, but, you know, we want to see you. We started to then start seeing the fintechs pop up, right? Startup culture, things are a little bit more relaxed. And then you started to see, okay, no, I have, in which that now is more of a thing for like the early stages. Oh yeah, remote, no problem. And you start to see where the competition from the big investment banks saying like these fintechs are taking our lunch, you know, like what's going on. Like I have friends from traditional investment banks that moved over to fintechs that I had a friend who literally said, I'm never going back. I mean, it was a plethora of reasons, but you know, that was, you started to see that before the pandemic. And now after the pandemic, obviously everybody had to work remote. So I think it totally aligns with what you're saying in terms of looking at your competition. And if, you know, it's just all in line with that.
A few years ago, I was making a case in one of the organizations that I worked in full time to leaders and giving them actual quotes, kind of like how Stephen has written here at the time, taking, and it was all, again, anecdotal data, but from the people who I was speaking with, we had a really, really hard time finding technology talent and specifically security talent. And, you know, I brought to leadership, to the executives, to the CTOs and those folks of these Fortune, this one was like a Fortune 20 or Fortune 50 organization, and said, this is what the talent is telling me. This is, you know, verbatim out of their mouths. And it was very similar to Stephen's comment. Like, I don't need to be there to press a button to do my job. And I'm not going to leave my current situation to come over to drive into, you know, in 100 miles or 50 miles or spend hours and hours in traffic and be stressed out for this opportunity. And so one of the leaders that I had connected with, or I was working with back then, he made me aware of this ROWE phenomenon, which is called ROWE is ROWE, and it stands for results only work environment. And it kind of came from, you know, you can, if you're in one of these types of roles, that it's about results. It's not about like FaceTime or seeing you or whatever. It's very specific to, you have to get these amount of, for example, like help desk tickets or something like that, like service desk. You can do that from anywhere. You know, a lot of these customer service jobs have been remote for years because with the laptop and everything, they can pretty much track what you're doing and you can answer the call from wherever you are. And so there's been portions of organizations that have done this. And then they have been whole organizations that have tried it too. But just evolving, you know, getting to the point of, hey, now we're at a crossroads because you have these huge organizations and some small ones who are just like, whatever it is, I just want to get this result, you know, and we'll make it happen. And with Zoom and with all of the things that happened over this past year, it's easier than ever to be able to make this stuff happen. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier. Obviously, you have to look at your infrastructure. You have to harden it to ensure security around remote work. Always have to throw in the security aspect. But yeah, I mean, it's more. I mean, look, it's either adapt or die, right? So companies that were unable to adapt last May, probably not here. They went out. Renee, I think you just went on mute.
I did. It was on purpose.
Oh, okay. My bad. My bad. My bad. My bad. I mean, you are a consummate professional on this thing, so we definitely understand that. Listen, I know we are over our time, but listen, it was something that was posted by Ryan Rolansky. He's the CEO of LinkedIn, and I absolutely love this chart. I think it was amazing. Renee and I both loved it. I want to share it before we go. So what's cool about it is his advice was, my advice to the class of 2021: focus less on the job you want in 10 years and more on growing your skills and learning as you go along. Career paths are different for everyone, and you don't need to have it all figured out now. Really enjoyed this chart because he has the way people think after college: school, internship, associate, manager, executive, and how it can look, and it could be twists and turns and different things of that nature. And I just wanted to add, I think it was a great quote. I think it was a great visual. Not everyone has traditional career paths. The two people on this particular show right now, definitely we do not.
Totally. And I'm curious as to how many people actually go through that top path. Like, I speak to more people than not that their whole bottom path is what actually happened, versus this quote career ladder, which is what they're saying here, like this very linear, step up the ladder kind of way.
I literally know in my network, I have a close friend that went through. Yeah, you're right. We start looking at the percentages of people. That's really interesting that you said that.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking in my personal network, and I know someone actually excuse me, school, internship, was the associate, small company, got bought out by a bigger company, advanced, they're now an executive, been there for like, I don't know, I would say easily like 15, 17 years, and still rocking. But you don't see that as often. Same company, just kind of grew throughout.
Yeah.
So, and in
I
IT,
think that's unusual. I think that I think it's an unusual path in this day, in this era. Probably in the 70s and 80s, that's what it used to be, with pensions, and you go in and you kind of step up the ladder and you stay with one company. And even in the one company space, like the people who have stayed 20 years and got into that executive level, there was something called a lattice instead of a ladder, where you do move across. So you do school, you do an internship, and then you're an associate, and then you hang out as maybe an associate in different roles for a number of years, or you may pop up to manager and doing different manager positions. So instead of like steps,
or something like that. Like I've seen that, like a management program, they have you hitting different aspects,
rotating. And those rotations could be, some of them are just small programs. I mean, like 18 months or 2 years. And then even when you get out of that, you're still, if you're the kind of company that either has a VP or a director or whatever that level is, you could be doing that for, I know some people in these large companies that are directors, and they've been directors for a long, long time. Like they're in a director of one area, then they become a director of a different area. Like they're understanding all these different facets of, these components of the company. But definitely that bottom one, I think, is much more aligned to the current environment and the way people work, and as they figure out themselves, like, oh, I left school, I thought even coming out of school, like, oh, I thought it was going to be this. And first job is like, oh, wow, this is what this really is. And then figuring out the type of environment you like. I know some people, they get into a big company. It's too, it becomes too narrow for them. Like they want to do more. They like being involved in more. They want to go to a smaller company, or people that have been in a smaller company, tend to go to other smaller companies. I mean, it's just so many different aspects when it comes to careers and progression and what is the right fit. I think it's like that's the key term that I'm always trying to find out, being a super recruiter. And like I was telling a guy that got a job on something I was working on. And I said, I'm just a matchmaker. Like I'm a career matchmaker, like making sure it's the right fit. So if the organization, it sounds pretty, oh, I want to go work for, it's this company that the whole world is saying is awesome, and you get in there and it's not the right fit, then it's not the right fit. So it's really trying to figure that out. And I think there's no way to be able to figure that out. And when you just don't know, like, how are you going to come out of school and be an intern and then go into a company and you would know, you don't know what the difference is with small company versus big company versus whatever. So it's interesting. It's good stuff.
Totally interesting stuff. Listen, everyone, today, thank you very much for tuning in. I think we are at our time, and I know Renee has things to do. So we took enough of her time, and we always appreciate her stopping through to drop her expertise in this space. Before we leave, Renee, let people know how to get in contact with you, your business, your different ways to contact you, and so forth.
Absolutely. The easiest way to contact me is on LinkedIn. That's my social media of choice. So it's LinkedIn, Renee Brown Small. It's open. You guys can connect with me there. We have as Nnamdi shared, a podcast called Breaking Into Cybersecurity. It's a LinkedIn Live, and we do it on LinkedIn and YouTube right now. And currently, my podcast co-host, Chris Fullon, he does part of it on Friday afternoons, I believe at 1 p.m. And then we have right now our consistent weekly show is called Cso Thursdays. And for those of you who don't know what CISO stands for, is Chief Information Security Officer. So we have two CISOs, James Azar and Naomi Buckwalter, two amazing, awesome people who come on with Chris Fullon and I, and we have different topics of conversation. And we also bring in different guests to come in and talk. So those are always a lot of fun. Always a hot topic or two or three involved in that. So, check us out there. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. But the easiest way to get to me is on LinkedIn.
Nice. Thank you for that. Stephen Upshaw, thank you both. Great information. Thank you, Stephen, for tuning in. And thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate all our viewers, and definitely the comments and the interaction. Guys, keep me on my toes. All right. On that note, to everyone, have a great weekend. I don't know who came up with Happy Friday, but I like saying it all of a sudden. It makes me feel happy. Happy Friday. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks again, Renee. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Cheers.